one of the myth that people have is like you should have a master's to get into PhD.
Exactly.
But this is, I guess, not the case, because some universities do accept direct bachelor's,
Mm.
and you can have an integrated program of MS and you can say PhD. I do call my parents every day, twice,
Mm.
morning and night. I have made a habit, like whatever be the deadline, I would call them. It is fixed. I never miss a single call talking to my parents. But when I'm looking at myself now, it is like it is actually building my character also in that sense, learning constantly, like looking for answers, and if not, then why I'm not getting the correct answer, like reasoning. So that was one of the things.
Hey everyone, my name is Ronak. Back with another episode. This is 12th episode in the Let's Talk series. Today the guest of honor is Mr. Gaurav Wagh. He is currently pursuing PhD from the Rochester Institute of Technology in the domain of security. He has completed his masters from the Thakur College of Engineering and Technology in Mumbai. He has done his bachelor's from Atharva College of Engineering. He shares with us some of the intricate details of the application process of the PhD and how one can pursue a PhD. Teaching is his passion, and he has also taught at the Universal College of Engineering when he was in the phase of his dissertation at Thakur College of Engineering. Research is his passion. So this episode is not only available on the YouTube but also on the Spotify and Anchor. Links to those will be down in the description box. And if you like my content, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and click on the bell icon so that you get notified every time I post something new. So let us now get started with the podcast. Hope you will enjoy it. So hi Gaurav, how are you?
Hello, hi,
Yeah.
all good.
Yeah, so I have a set of questions for you and we will go
Yeah.
through each and every single one of them. So the first question is, what are you doing currently?
So talking about myself, I am currently pursuing my PhD. So I am a third year PhD student in Computing and Information Sciences department at
Mm.
Rochester Institute of Technology.
Mm. Yeah, and what is your area of expertise, the area that you're working?
So my research basically focuses on developing privacy preserving frameworks,
Mm.
and it is basically used by applying applied cryptography and the research skills which we learn, and that is applied to a networking domain. And my domain basically is like the critical infrastructure called smart grid.
Mhm. Yeah, now speaking of it, so it is considered that PhD is very, I would say, and stretch investment of time. So considering this fact, don't you think that, like, if the PhD is, very long duration, what was your motivation in order to pursue it?
So yes, it's true. Like when people talk about PhD, it takes on an average 5 years, and some of them like more than that. And talking about myself, my main motivation actually was like I had already done my master's from Thakur College of Engineering under the guidance of Rajesh Bansode sir, and there I studied wireless sensor networks,
Mhm.
and that was my first experience, you can say, in terms of research. But then later I was more drawn to, like, I had passion for teaching as well as learning computer related, like you can say computer related field. So I sat and I like, what would help me in achieving this? And for teaching also, as you know, that the basic criteria for Mumbai University to be a faculty is like to be a PhD holder.
Mm.
So that was my main motivation for getting into a PhD.
Mhm. And
So
so
I have
yeah.
not decided like immediately, but like down the
Mm.
line when it comes, then I started connecting the dots, and then I planned for doing a PhD.
Mhm. And now let us talk about the procedure that it takes, in order to get started with PhD in the US. So the PhD admissions. So could you tell us the procedure that you went through?
Yes, yes, yes. I would definitely love to, because that was the main thing which I felt that I was missing when I was applying for PhD.
Mm,
So first of all, talking about PhD, like most of the people might not know, but I usually classify it like in terms of like three types of PhD. So first PhD talks about like fully funded PhD.
mm,
Then second is partially funded PhD, and then it is the paid PhD. So
mm,
when I'm saying paid PhD, it is like you have to pay for the, you can say, to the university
mm,
to get a degree. When it is partially funded, it can be either by the organization which you work in, for example, like who sponsors you, or the country. So like I have few colleagues who are from different countries, and the countries have a criteria of sponsoring them for PhD,
mhm,
get a degree, and again serve back to their own nation. So they have a
mm,
contract. So all the PhD expenses is bared by the, you can say, by the respective governments or organization. Once they get a PhD, they cannot work in US, but they have to again go back to their home country, serve that designated period, and then you can again return back to US if you want to. And the first one which I mentioned, like fully funded PhD, it is like the universities pay you to do research, and then that is how you get a PhD.
mm. So, which one was
And
your,
yeah,
like, which one?
so mine one was the fully funded PhD.
Mhm,
So because I didn't like work in an organization who would sponsor, and I don't have any idea that India do have some scholarships which they sponsor to get you to PhD,
mhm,
but I am not aware of it. And I guess it is like a long process. Like you should know correct people and correct contacts to get into it. My type of PhD was fully funded PhD. And as you mentioned about the application, so my application started by searching for an advisor who
mhm,
was working in the domain which I was interested in.
mhm,
So now when I started my journey, I was there were counseling, you can say, agencies which help you to prepare GRE,
mm,
IELTS, and then or TOEFL, and then they help you to get a college based on your scores.
mm,
That is true when it comes to masters, but when you're talking in terms of a PhD, to be honest, you should know what you're doing or what you want to do in your
mm.
future life, like for 5 years, because that is a really big commitment, like big
Exactly.
commitment in terms of time. And if you're talking in terms of engineering, as most of us might like relate completely, that we did engineering because our parents told to do us.
Mm,
There was no like a vision or something. And I'll be honest with you, that was same in my case. But then when you realize that you have to give a commitment of 5 years, and that too
mm,
on a foreign land, you have to think through it. So what
mm,
I did was that I first analyzed each and every college profile, you can say, website. I
mhm,
went to their departments and checked which department is doing which research and what was the professor like associated with it.
mhm.
It was too time consuming. Trust me, it was really time consuming because I
Yes.
don't know the map of US. So first I printed the map of US in order to get a gist that how US looks like, what are the states,
Mm,
what are the colleges, and what are the requirements. So
mm,
once I identified which are the professors who are like whose research I would love to do research with, like in terms of the domain,
mhm,
then I started writing them emails that hey, I'm interested in working with you.
mm,
Some of the professors have publications on their website, so you can read those papers, and or you can ask, you can say, the professors to send them the paper, like send those papers to you,
mm,
because I guess there are like $30 a paper, $31 to be specific.
mm.
So in INR conversion, it is too expensive. So I
Yes.
don't know if the professor would like reply to my email, or I would read a paper. So it's better like to ask the professor, like, hey, I'm interested. Can I get your papers? Because professors have
Mm,
written those paper and it like they have it. So they
mm,
will email you those PDF. You can read and you can get a gist out of it that what the research is about.
mm,
And talking in terms of the other case is like, so you approach the professors, but there are two types again. Like the professors have a project which they are working on, and you will be just joining in, or you have to come up with your own plan
oh,
that what are you able to solve. So so these are the questions which everybody should ask before joining into the PhD, like starting
Mm,
from stipend and everything, because it is a commitment, right? Even if you buy a
exactly.
specific, like a small thing, you ask 10 questions and purchase that thing. So if you are
Mm,
giving your 5 years, you, and even the professor is responsible, and most of the professors in US help and answer those questions. If the professor is interested in you, and if you raise some sensible questions, I'm not saying like
mm,
any questions, like write those questions on a piece of paper, prioritize it, which are important, which can
mm,
be answered by the professor directly, because end of the day, he would be, or she would be your like godfather or godmother, who would be like you would be reporting to.
mm,
So that is how the overall, you can say, PhD process works,
mm,
for me at least.
mm. So, so basically, you did a research, like you thoroughly searched that which area you had the professor. So that could have been one of the reasons of joining Rochester. But had you any other universities in mind, like instead of the Rochester Institute of Technology, apart from that?
Yeah.
And yeah,
Yes. Yeah. Sorry.
yeah, yeah. So any other
So
universities you would have considered?
so apart from those universities, I had applied for like four other universities as well, and I got admissions, like admits from three universities. But few universities, I would not name them, they said that you need to pay XYZ amount. It was a paid PhD.
Hmm.
So to be honest, like it is very expensive, and being from a middle class family, it was not like affordable for me, like for a
Hmm.
5 years plan. And and the other one was, other university was like they gave me an admit, but they didn't reveal the professor. So they
Hmm.
said like first you come, you clear your masters once again, like by taking the masters courses and the required credits, and then we would see whether you are eligible, and then we would assign you a advisor. So
Hmm.
for me, going on a foreign land without any idea that who my advisor would be, for me, I thought it is a risky chance of
Exactly.
going completely blank and not knowing who the person or who the advisor is. So I didn't take my chances. But I would love, like my initial, you can say, inclination was that I would love to work for a professor who I have at least have a dialogue with,
Hmm.
because I know that professor, I know the professor's expectation, not completely, but at least 20% for sure,
Hmm.
and then I can just move ahead, because there is someone who I'm talking to, or some person, right? It should
Hmm.
not be like a general body, or like a departmental or an administrative person who is just interacting with me. Once I land over there and there is no one to talk to, or like in that sense. But
Hmm.
there are these opportunities, or you can say options.
Hmm. And so it has been many years you have been in the Rochester. So what was the experience like?
So the first experience, to be honest, was like a horrible experience, because here it is like it snows like most of the time.
Hmm.
And yes, when you go to like some hill stations, you like get, like in India, like you see snow, you get happy, but here it is like it is a constant thing. So it was really frustrating, like what is going on, because even if you have to go out, you have to wear all the coats, boots and
Hmm.
everything. And here it is pretty isolated. So I come from Bombay, so like
Hmm.
Bombay is pretty crowded. So here you cannot see even a single person walking on the street. Of course, it's snow, but like not even
Hmm.
a single person. So it is like that, you can say, lonely. And it was like, of course, like you can say the cultural differences and everything were there. And here when you come as a student, you have to manage everything, starting from your expenses, cooking food, and like all the utilities which you do. So, along with that, you have to manage studies, which is something which is
Hmm.
new over here. So that was a tough task. So it was, you can say, I took some time to adjust, but once I am here, then now I feel very like comfortable. Like I know, like now, okay, this is the grocery store or something like that. Earlier, when you are
Hmm.
new, no one to talk to, and all of like, even like the friends with you are exploring places.
Hmm.
So that is a good learning experience, starting from cooking to everything else. So yeah.
Hmm. And now let us talk a little bit about your experience at the Universal College of Engineering. So you have been a teaching assistant over there, I presume. So what was the experience like, and how you got the opportunity in Universal College?
So I was doing my like you can say pursuing my masters at Thakur College
Mm,
from 2014. Yeah, and in 2015, once the courses got over, you like we have semester 3 and semester 4,
mm,
which is of second year of masters, and it is like project, and you have to report the project to your advisor.
mm,
So, being my advisor, Professor Rajesh Bansode, like those of who don't know, he's the person who will like stress you, like press you so much that you would do your work like we on weekly basis. And I got an opportunity, so I was reporting him like quite frequently and through emails and everything. But then I thought like, okay, I should explore my teaching side as well because I had a passion too.
mm,
So I got two, you can say, job opportunities. One was from Thakur College itself as a
mm,
lecturer, and one was from Universal College.
mm,
But my main reason of joining Universal was that I wanted to create my separate identity, because once you are there as a student in
mm,
the college, it is like some I like to keep it different. So, like once you're studying, and the professional side like teaching would
mm,
be different. So at Universal I gave my interview like in 2015, and I got an opportunity to teach, and I was simultaneously doing my, you can say, research, reporting
mm,
to my advisor, like back then who was Dr. Rajesh Bansode, and simultaneously teaching in Universal.
mm,
And to be honest, I was working in IT department, and the head of department was is actually Professor Yogita Mane.
mm,
So she is the one whom I interacted with, or you can say I got mentored under. And there are different things. Like right now, when I was new over there, I thought, oh, I have to just teach and come back and sit, right?
mm,
But there are other management responsibilities like attendance, workshops, arranging workshops,
mm,
events, then managing the students. So it is
mm,
really a nice experience. So I am in touch with most of my students. They are
mm.
also in US over here. So yeah, it is really like that was one of my, you can say, best experience so far in working experience. So yeah.
Now, let us talk about the requirements, the basic requirements that you need in order to complete your PhD. So, what are the most, I would say, basic things that you are going to require to complete the PhD degree? Not any extra things, but the basics that you can just get away with the PhD after doing those.
So one of the PhD requirement is that it should be very clear. Like that is one of the dialogue which the student should initiate with his or her like advisor, because that is like it depends on university to university. Because if I'm working on a research and there are multiple conferences or journals, right? So which journals are aligning to your domain? If I'm doing a research in smart grid domain, I would focus on smart grid related top conferences or journals where I'm which will have an high impact factor and which would have high recognition. So those would be the requirements. And other requirements are also like the basic requirements would be the professor wants you to take specific courses.
Mm,
So those are also falling in requirement. So this is really an important. So once you are in a master's, you know that these are the courses, this is the timeline, and by this like 2 or 3 years, you're definitely graduating. You know a deadline, right? That you will
mm,
have a degree in your hand by maximum by this fall or spring semester. But in PhD, it is very like a critical thing because you don't know actually that when you're graduating and
mm,
what are the expectations. And trust me, the expectations do change across, like, because it's a long degree, right? You can find
exactly.
something new, or if you are working on something and then you come across a research where it has already been published, which none of the
Mm.
researcher wants. So that is
Correct.
like you feel a little bit like shattered that, oh my god, this research is done, and what is the novelty in it?
Mm.
So those are the things. Talking about my institute, and specifically like my department has a list of conferences which is already there on the website. Those
Mm.
are the like list of conferences. At least you should have a top tier publication, and if not, then at least it should be related to your domain, and that conference should be a top tier conference,
Mhm.
because it is really hard to keep a track of all the conferences which are top tier in that sense. So the faculty whom you are working under, like the advisor, they know which conferences they want. So either the student should ask them like, what are your requirements, and you should work accordingly. Because if you start your PhD without asking those questions,
Mm.
then you might finish your courses, but at the end, once your research is done, you don't even know the conference, how the papers are written. So I personally believe that you should have the name of the conference, start working or start reading the conference, like attending the conferences and reading the papers.
Mm.
So this was something which I learned across like throughout my period, and still learning actually. So
Mm.
even though I am not writing a paper, I would definitely register for an event. I
Mm.
would look what are the talks, and I would learn something from it. And one interesting thing I would like to share was like when I was new over here, we have a course which is known as PhD Colloquium series.
Mm.
So I was like, okay, and it was of course like not graded, but we used to sit for talks which were not related to our domain.
Mm.
And when I used to sit like for us like a first year student, I am like, why I'm attending an human computing interaction talk?
Mm.
Because it's not my domain, but why
Exactly.
I am doing that?
Mm.
And why I'm attending other talks which are like networking related, like too much like network topology or like in that sense. So then it came to my mind that it helps you to understand from a different perspective as well.
Mm.
So you should understand it's not by just attending your own research talks or like the talks in your conferences you would learn something, but you might get an idea, like something is new in that one, and you can take that thing and you can implement in your domain, which would
Mm.
be new. So like tweaking some things and getting some novelty or new contribution in your own domain is a new thing. So
Correct.
that I learned later, but like trust me, if you had asked me like back in 2019, so I would be the most frustrated person, like why I'm attending. And we used to create reports that
Mm.
what we learn from it, like small paragraph, just a paragraph, and what we liked about it. Was the presentation good? What
Mm.
was the present, like was the fonts visible were visible to us? So we were looking from a third person's perspective, also
Exactly.
understanding and trying to get to know what they are trying to solve,
Mm.
and also the alignment of slides, like because it's very tough that if I start talking about my research, I know like half of the people would just close the YouTube channel and they would just move on to some different thing.
Correct.
But how to keep the audience engaged, and and first of all, it's very important to know your audience.
Mm.
If I'm giving a talk in conference, I should be more specific.
Mm.
But if I'm giving a talk to a general audience, I should be in terms of like talk in terms of generality, or like giving a scenario to them and explaining where my research falls. So that's something which is, I think I should, like as a researcher or like a person who is presenting, should know that.
Mm. So you have learning in that process also, because yeah, it makes sense. If you can view someone's work with a third person perspective, definitely you will gain some tips from it in order to improve your dissertation presentation. That might be
True.
quite
And the
helpful.
more, yeah, true. And actually, like TED Talks and everything, like I personally feel like I was never a fan of like TED Talks and everything. But
Mm.
when you work in such like environment where people are listening to each other talks, they are raising some questions. So tomorrow, if I give a presentation and there is a question from a third person who
Mm.
is not in my domain, but that question is really valid, then it changes my course of research or perspective. I might not say like completely, but that would be a like you can say a spark to initiate or like ignite my thought process in that sense.
Hmm.
So yeah.
So now let us talk about how you started learning the security domain. Okay, so everyone knows that they can learn their domain, but let us assume that how you started with the security domain, like when you initiated everything, the learning.
So like you are talking in terms of the PhD where I started, or like back when like I was first introduced to like the
First
security thing,
introduced to the
or
security.
so to be honest, I was first introduced in my bachelor's, and
Mm.
there were courses actually which were focusing on the security aspects, and that's where we like learned the security goals and everything, concepts, attacks, what are the attack surfaces and everything. So that gave me a gist like what exactly the domain is about, not completely but theoretical perspective. Then when we did some experiments, it was of course like on a local workstation.
Mhm.
But then later, what are the techniques and what are the problems? Because we were not given problems back in like our bachelor's. It
Mhm.
was like just explanation of the concepts. But when you start working on a project, like my final year project was based on protecting the privacy of the customers by using anonymization, which is a technique.
Mm.
So in that sense, I learned actually what was the problem and how we were using one of the technique which we learned to solve that. So that was a problem identification and then the solution. But then when I started my master's, I went further and made designed a protocol for wireless sensor network. So
Mhm.
what exactly I am working on? What was my goal to achieve it? And if I invent something new, then how should I present it in terms of what is there currently in the literature, which is top class? And I have to give a comparative analysis. So these are the things which, like, so I went from like everybody goes through that, like from generalization to specialization,
Mm.
and that narrowed down. So when I was writing my statement of purpose or LORs, when we are expected, like statement of purpose are basically written by us, that why we are a perfect fit for that university, and LORs are written by the professors.
Correct.
So since my advisor was also from a networking domain, and he used to teach us networking design and management.
Mm.
So taking an LOR from him would be more, you can say, of course, he's my advisor also, but if he was my professor, then I would have taken his LOR for
Mm.
like for my application. And that actually, like, once I started reading research papers more and more, that made me something interesting. And then I thought, like, let's take it to a next level where I can be a lecturer as well, and you can say work on the problems and apply those techniques. And there are
Mm.
still new techniques which are being developed. So it is not like when whatever I read in bachelor's, it is still true, the concepts or the foundation still remains the same, but
Mm.
there are new techniques and everything which are like developed and now later standardized. So there is a process where you have to develop those techniques, make it standardized, and then it is applicable to the real world or real domain.
Correct.
So according to one's needs. So yeah, so that was my main, you can say, my journey of like security. And if you ask me right now, like, do I know security in depth? Yes, I do, but I don't know how much deep still security goes into, because
Mm.
there are proofs and you can do it like mathematically and you can prove it. So there are different verticals to it. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think an entire life would might be, less to explore a single subject. Like you might have not even discovered the 10% of it by the end of your life. That might be the case.
Yes, yes, that is true. And identifying potential, like reading materials, is one of the key thing which I understood right now. Because if you're reading something which is like, you never know until and unless you finish it, right?
Correct.
So that is something you have to read through, like different materials. Google is one of the thing, but searching it, like using the correct keywords, is
Hmm.
also something important, because tomorrow if I need to search something, I have to know the keyword as well, that what I'm searching for.
Correct.
So I can just type smart grid. It would show me smart grid papers, but it would be aligned to electrical domain as well as the IT domain because it is a mixture of both.
Hmm.
But I have to read IT related papers and that too cryptographic papers. So I have to narrow my vision like, okay, this is my pool, then now shorter, 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 and then I have to refine it and I have to find my, you can say, key papers or deck of papers which I'll be focusing on.
Hmm.
So in that way, you have to do your literature survey. So the keywords are really an important part in our life as a PhD. Yeah.
Now, let us talk about some of the prospects or opportunities that you have after completing the doctorate, because we have heard a lot of things when it comes to the MS, because MS has been quite standardized mechanism in order to get the job in the US once you complete a bachelor's in India. But now let us talk about PhD. So apart from teaching, what other prospects do you have in your mind that can be applied?
So there are, like as you said, in US also there are two opportunities. One is the research side of it, and one is the teaching side of it.
Mm,
But when you say teaching, over here also there are institutes who are supporting research. So even if you are doing teaching, you can still do research with, you can say, a group of students, or you can start your own lab by some collaborations,
mm,
and then you can do a research. But you will be on the university side,
mm,
and you will collaborate with the people from the industry and work accordingly. The other part is being a researcher.
mm,
And when you, there are career fairs, I do agree with that. And when I was a fresher, I used to go to the career fairs along with my master students.
mm.
But then I realized that PhD is specific, right? So
Exactly.
jobs can already be like, you can only get jobs if you have some collaborations already when you are working on a project.
Mm,
Because if you are a student and the professor is collaborating with a company, then the company observes you from scratch when you are like starting your PhD and developing their, you can say, solution.
mm.
And later they can absorb you as an employee, or first they might give you an internship and then later absorb you as a full-time employee.
Correct.
But if you're starting from your end, I think the main career fair for PhD student is the conferences.
Mm,
So the more conference you attend, the more, you can say, a wide range of like research which is done in your domain is you are aware of.
mm,
And you get to get, like, know people. Like networking is an important thing, right?
mm,
So now right now we are recording when the COVID is going on, but still there are conferences which are taking place like virtually, and some of them
mm,
are going in hybrid, you can say hybrid form, where if the people are interested they can attend, and if they want to be attending virtually because of the travel restrictions, whichever country they are, they can attend virtually as well. So I guess those, like networking and finding the correct fit, is one of the key things over here. And looking for your job, like our job description cannot be searched specifically, if you see, because
correct.
if I'm working on something, I cannot see a job description which matches everything. But
Mm,
of course, getting to know which are the research internship opportunities which the organizations provide,
mm,
and what are the requirements. Because if you are, I work in cybersecurity, but if
mm,
I'm working in term like in a department of energy kind of job, it requires US citizenship because it is
mm.
working with a critical infrastructure.
Correct.
So I cannot get into those, you can say, organizations. And if you ask me, was I aware about it while applying PhD? Partly I was,
Mm,
because cybersecurity, nobody gets a clearance in order to work with it.
mm,
But if you're working around and like if you're working on simulations, then yes, you have an opportunity to work.
mm,
So those are the key things which, like, you have to plan way ahead of the time.
mm. And now this is the last question for our today's podcast. So this is about a message that you would like to give for the aspirants, because most of the graduates are definitely looking forward. But in this podcast, I might also, most likely I would like to target the master students, because doctorate is something that few of them are going to do, since
Yes.
they find the inclination towards the research the way you did. So,
Yeah.
what is one of the, let's say, messages that you want like to give?
So one of the key message I want to give, and like which I have learned from my advisor, which is current advisor, which is Dr. Sumita Mishra. She
Mm,
always says like introspect yourself. So that is one thing which I really follow. I
mm,
never used to like if like plan things ahead of time. I used to be a person who would not even know like what I'm doing the next day. It was
mm,
that like casual. But if you are asking me in that perspective, then of course first introspect yourself and plan accordingly.
mm,
And one of the myth that people have is like you should have a master's to get into PhD.
exactly.
But this is I guess not the case, because some universities do accept direct bachelor's,
Mm,
and you can have an integrated program of MS and you can say PhD. So
mm,
in my case, I have a colleague who has directly done his bachelor's and pursuing his PhD.
mm,
But we both have to do the credits of the master's program. So we have 60 credits
mm.
total. 3 credits means a course. So
Okay.
there are 10 courses. So that is for masters and the like masters and PhD courses which we do. And the remaining 30 credits are for the research.
Mhm,
And when you're talking about like the advice which I would give, and I always like talk to the people who are on Facebook and who like type questions. See, PhD is a thing. I'm not saying it is impossible to do. Yes, you can do it, but you also have to be open and have a dialogue with your parents that I'm planning to do this. This is my path,
mm,
because that is how like it would like. So, what is the thing that once you discuss with your parents, even they should plan for your finances accordingly, because application and everything does take, you
correct.
can say, does require money. And one thing which I really feel is to have a dialogue is really important, because right now we focus on all the students who want to come to US.
Mm,
But when I talk to my students, few students are like, sir, I want to do this and I will do it.
mm,
They have some passion or they know what they want to do it. I agree with them. But if there are some students who are like, I don't know, my friends are going, even I want to go for masters.
mm,
So that is not the case. I'm not saying that student cannot do, but if his or her parents are not financially stable in that sense, and to be honest, it's not a shame to accept it,
correct.
because I still remember, and I still remember actually that when I went to my parents and I said that, parents, I just want to do PhD after
Mm,
my masters, and I want to go to US.
mm,
So my parents said okay, and then later my parents had an argument with each other, like, and I was not understanding what they were trying to speak to each
mm,
other. But later they came out like from the bedroom and they were like, hey, like they sat and they said like my mom was actually, so there were two discussions which were going on. My dad felt that he should have the money to support my education
mm,
because I'm his son, and he felt that it was his responsibility, which is
correct.
true. But the other thing was my mom was very practical that if we don't have the money, we cannot send him to US.
Mm,
And like my and like to be like sharing a personal experience, we do have a flat in Bombay, but my parents were like, we can keep that mortgage like most of
mm,
the people do, and we
yes.
can send to US, like send you to US,
Mm,
but will you complete the degree? And I was really scared, to be honest,
exactly.
because that was putting me a peer pressure of completing the degree and getting everything straight. But
Mm,
it was a period of 5 years. And if I cannot do that, then that house would be like sold to the bank, and my we would left with like no house in like Bombay or something.
correct.
So one of the thing is like either the student should know his financial thing.
Mm,
If not, he should have that correct passion, because if he's not having that passion and if he's taking a loan and just playing with it is really risky. Because to be honest, right now, which the thing which I feel like Indian parents also don't open up to their kids and show their weaknesses or the finances, like discuss. To be honest, my father also never discusses the finances with me till date.
Mm,
But that is the dialogue which my mom encouraged him to communicate. Like, listen, we don't have money.
mm,
You can apply, you can get fully funded scholarship if you want. But if it is there, we can provide you for the application, but not for the other things. So
mm,
that was really an eye-opening experience for me. And talking about my thing right now, that if you ask me whether I'll go in teaching or research, I'm
mm,
confused. Trust me. And it's okay to be confused, like completely fine. But what you can do, you can just, if you're confused, what I do is like I write what is required for that field and what is required for the other field. For example, research and teaching requires presentation skills.
correct.
That skill is common. I will develop on presentation skills, and later when time is there, I would get a better clarity and I would select which side I want to jump into.
Mm,
But if I tell you right now to write an essay about yourself in 10 lines, trust me, when I wrote an essay about me for 10 lines, it was like, I am Gaurav Wagh, I'm a third year PhD student. That's it. I was not able to express my interest. Are you getting it? So if
mhm.
you're only not getting convinced or you only don't know yourself, right? So how would you like expect a company to hire you and do the job?
Exactly.
So that's where I felt that okay, I took my time, like I sat, I wrote everything like what I want to do. And still today, like I make a rough plan or roadmap, as I said, that
Mm,
these are my goals for like 6 months and these are the checkpoints which I do.
mm,
If it is not, and it never goes according to the plan, trust me. But
correct.
having a plan and keeping, I never make a backup plan, to be honest. I just make a rough plan,
Mm,
and as situation come by, and I would then create a backup which is dynamically like planned accordingly. So that is one thing which is like I would encourage. And those who are listening, don't feel bad about it, but trust me, like if you don't, like that is my take. Like I have few students who don't have house in Bombay. Their first priority is to get a house in Bombay itself,
mm,
or like anywhere where they stay. So that's where I feel like they should have those words or like interaction with the parents and everything, and then like focus on it. So that is my suggestion. And plan, like, because I thought that my visa, like my college, when I had selected engineering, it was through crack process, right? We gave a
mm,
list of 20 colleges and we got
correct.
one of the college.
Mm,
Now here you are putting like or investing 50 or 60 lakhs, which is a huge amount.
mm,
And with respect to masters, with respect to PhD, I really encourage that the student should take the effort that where he's investing those XY amount of lakhs.
mm,
Because if you go to buy a house, you check the house, you see the locality, you visit multiple times, and then you make a purchase, right? You just don't directly, without looking at it, buy such a property or something. I'm just giving an example of it. So when you're investing those amounts and the amount and those years, I think you should really look. LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook are those platforms, right? You have those groups.
mm.
Put a message in that group. People will definitely contact you.
Yes.
So that is what I feel, that the connectivity is really important these days.
Mm. Quite an intriguing podcast, I would say. So, this is the first time I've actually conducted a podcast with a doctorate fellow. So far
No,
now,
no, I'm not a doctorate.
yeah, but
I will be
in
a
the
doctorate
process
soon.
of
Yeah.
being a doctorate, so you are going to be
Yeah.
PhD in like, let's say, few months or years.
Yeah. Expecting my PhD to be next year, but fingers crossed.
Mm.
So yeah.
Yeah,
And
and
like if
definitely you.
anybody wants to, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, go ahead.
No, no, I was saying like if anybody wants to just reach and like contact me, they can contact me on LinkedIn.
Hmm.
And of course, like if they want my help or something, I would definitely be happy to help them.
Yes, yes, yes. I'm definitely going to put your LinkedIn profile in the description box as well. Yeah, but my takeaway I would say is that assuming the fact that people are quite scared of doing doctorate these days, and just because of the amount of the money that is invested in, let's say, over the period of 2 years, because people think MS or MBA is a profitable investment just because it is time bounded, and doctorate isn't. So my suggestion to others would be that just if you have the research inclination, if you have the potential, just try to take the risk, because at most it is going to cost you, let's say, 3 or 4 years. And if you are extremely brilliant, you can even get it in 2.5. I've seen many cases where people complete their PhD in like 2.5 years. So that might be the case. And yeah, that is my like point of view, the way I see it,
Yeah.
how you can pursue doctorate.
No, because I truly like agree with you. Also, like one more perspective which I had was, for me, completing a PhD, to be honest, in like for example 5 years, and completing a PhD in 3 years, I would consider, when I was back in India, like completing a PhD in 3 years would be a brilliant student. Yes, he
Mm,
might be, but his goal or his path, because if I'm a new student with a new problem, right?
mm,
So I am the one who is starting with literature survey, everything, and writing papers, going to conferences, everything from scratch.
mm,
But if a student is joining a group where they already know what they're solving, a goal is defined, the
mm,
literature papers are already being sorted by the senior. You just have to read and immediately get to the track which they are. Are you getting it? So
correct.
you you reach from, like, if you're saying 2.5 years, a student can also formulate a problem, solve it immediately, and get a degree.
Mm,
But these are the different factors which play into, you can say, account, because that is how, like, PhD is. And it's
mm.
really like, it is, do I can say, like, it is, yes, it is complicated,
Yes.
but if you know where, how and where to, like, tweak in and learn, it's like, I really like, to be honest, I really like PhD. Like, there are some
Mm,
days like I cannot sleep, and I never thought of myself that I would never sleep because of, like, I'm not solving a problem. I used to just sleep before, like, even my maths integration and everything was like pending in 12th. I used to just
mm,
sleep like anything. But when I'm looking at myself now, it is like, it is actually building my character also, in that sense,
mm.
learning constantly, like looking for answers, and if not, then why I'm not getting the correct answer, like reasoning. So that was one of the things. So
Yeah.
yeah, that was that.
Yeah, and
And I just,
mm,
yeah, sorry,
yeah, yeah, go
no,
ahead.
sorry, I'm interrupting you, sir. No, I just wanted to say that it is like, you are telling it right, that PhD actually, the people are scared because it is a long time
Mm,
commitment or long term commitment. And you do have a valid point. Like, so maybe like they should give a thought on this one, because even they don't know, like, they are falling into which, like, domain or which research, and whether how will be the advisor,
mm,
because you have to match the wavelength, because you would be working with him.
correct.
So that is one of the things. Yeah.
Yeah, so man, definitely I would like to thank you for taking out your time, because even today you had a talk, and in India right now it is 4 a.m. and
Yeah.
there I think it is around 6 p.m.
Yeah. 6:30. Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, and I also wanted to thank you for, and sorry I kept you waiting for a month, because
Yes.
it was like, even I wanted to be like, you can say, free and discuss everything. Of course, I do
Mm,
discuss with my students right now who are pursuing their masters, or who are planning to pursue PhD, who are back in India as well.
mm,
I'm on Facebook, like, they, some of the people who are like, just like, so I just wanted to share, like, one of the post which I read was, a parent contacted, like, wrote on Facebook that he doesn't have the money,
mm,
but his or her son is like wants to go and like please help him out. So I told them like, okay, what is your situation? Because they were not having home also to put mortgage for. So
Mm,
that are the things which you have to, and parents don't discuss those pressures with their kids.
correct.
And it is not pressures. And I'm really telling you, like, parents should have those discussions.
Mm,
And students and like the people who are planning to come over here, they should not feel ashamed that their parents cannot do it. You
correct.
should find a way. It is not like US is something which is great. It is great, I agree.
Mm,
But everybody has their different stories, and that is how it is.
correct.
So that is the big picture. And
Mm,
apart from this, like the talk, I really appreciate you making those videos. I saw your videos actually. And earlier I was like, what is this? Like, why I am supposed to give like a podcast or something? And one thing was like when I saw your request, I went and then I realized like, okay, you are not focusing on the main people like you are finding a common points like
mm,
those who can relate to us, and like you can say think like yes, it is possible to do a PhD. If I can, then everybody
correct.
can.
Exactly.
And that is, and such videos, if I to be honest, if I would be back in 5 years like down the line before, like back in 2017 or like 16, I would search for these types of videos so that somebody could at least
Mm,
guide me like what it is, because my parents don't know anything about PhD. If you ask me right now, I also don't know anything much about PhD. I'm still learning. But
mm,
those are the questions which at least like even if talking with someone would clear our doubts and expectations,
correct.
and not just land on a foreign land with some imaginary world that oh everything would
Exactly.
be cool. And so that is really
Exactly.
like main thing to discuss, and nobody discusses this. So
No,
I don't know why, but yeah.
this is true because people think that USA will be completely as good as it is shown in the movies. Obviously, it is not as bad as either, but it is not even too good as it is shown in the movies. It is just the life that you have in India, just with different people, different minds. But the life itself is going to be the same. Only you can, like, there is a higher potential of earning money if you consider, because dollar is very high when it is compared with rupee. But even,
Yeah.
like, there is also a matter of fate, because in India there are many people who land into very great companies or opportunities, or let's say great people, they meet great people, switch careers, and everything happens. And even in US you can also make a good living if you play very smartly, because you are competing with the entire world, not just Indians. In India you are only competing with Indians. In US you are competing with, let's say, Americans already who are over there. Then you are competing with, let's say, people from European countries, Chinese, Japanese, many people, even, and everyone is as strong as you, because you are only going to find, I would say, cream over there. In India, you might be the brightest kid in your class, but in US, everyone is as bright as you, because everyone has climbed their way out of their comfort zone in order to reach that position. So that is the thing. So definitely my motive is that just don't, have unrealistic expectations when you are applying for US. That is my take, because I have been conducting podcasts with many of the people who are currently studying in the US, or who have completed their education in the US. And everyone says the same, that you have to be very, very realistic. You cannot have theatrical expectations, because at the end you are going to get disappointed, because the way we put it, and the society, the Indian society, imposes that once you go to US you are going to become a billionaire, which is not a fact.
Yes.
So this
Yes, some of my
should,
relatives are waiting for that.
exactly, so that fact should be checked correctly. And you need to have realistic expectation that you can earn around, let's say, 100,000 to $200,000 salary, not like $1 million salary just the moment you join. So you have to be very much realistic about it. That is the reason I started. And not just US, I am even considering India, because many people think that in India, even, like, the way it is been imposed, that in India software engineers don't earn. but that is also not the case. If you are a skillful software engineer, you are going to earn at any cost. So that quite
True.
makes sense.
That's the true, like you can say, what you can say, the case everywhere. Because one thing which I learned was that apart from, like as you said, like there are many competitions in US, like from
Hmm.
diverse like cultures. The main bottom line is that you should be at the best what you do. That's it. You
Hmm.
have to be, whether it be India, like you change the demographics, you have to give your best shot.
Correct.
That is one thing. And one of the podcasts which I was listening was of Chintan. He was my student, which you conducted.
Hmm.
He said like there is relatives and there are peer pressure and everything. I really do agree. There is pressure, but one thing, like that is some of, like there are few relatives. I will never like deny that relatives are like too awesome. But when I'm telling that, when I'm a single child of my parents, so when I came over here, so now my parents are growing old. So one thing I was very like nervous was in terms of like being away from them. When
Hmm.
I, like when they need me the most, I'm not there for them.
Correct.
But in those case, to be honest, my close relatives, like
Hmm.
my uncle, auntie, I call him like mama, mommy, and my cousins, like, and my friends, to be honest, my best friends, they are the ones who take care of my family. I'm not saying my
Correct.
parents and like okay, like don't take care of themselves, but
Hmm.
in the time of need, like something was like very like emergent and my dad was to be hospitalized.
Oh.
My friend came over there and like he did all those things. So
Hmm.
when you say that relatives put up peer pressure, yes, but they are also expecting something good for us, some of the relatives. But
Exactly.
having those relatives and having those people, because right now I can say that I'm completing my PhD in 4 years,
Hmm.
is only because there is a good support, emotional support in India.
Hmm.
So that's why I can study over here. And I am a person where I would think of my parents, my relatives, and everyone.
Hmm.
And I one thing I would like to say, like when I was going to US,
Hmm.
there were two questions. One question was I would never, like by my relatives. Like one question was that I would never come back to India. That was one main
Hmm.
question. Second question was that I would never call them, and I would like be like a US with an accent and like proper, like, and I would be trying to do that. But one thing, I do call my parents every day, twice,
Hmm.
morning and night. I have made a habit, like whatever be the deadline, I would call them. It is fixed. I never miss a single call talking to my parents, even whatever it be. Like even for this good morning, of course, I can send a WhatsApp,
Hmm.
but till date, I guess only I have not contacted them once, like in a day or something. But
Hmm.
when I have entered US, till now, I have called them like always.
Hmm.
And that is what, like someone has to change that attitude, like when they put in like you will not call parents. And now I'm
Exactly.
planning to complete my PhD and settle back in India.
Hmm.
But everybody's like, are you mad? You're not earning
Hmm.
US dollars. US
Correct.
dollars is more, as you said, like 70.
Hmm.
But again, it is comparing apples to oranges. And if you set a realistic goal, if you earn something, as you said, like software
Hmm.
developer are not like that known in India, but there are some skillful people which earn money
Hmm.
and they're happy in their life staying in India.
Exactly.
So being in that responsible like environment, these are some key factors. I I made sure that I, in 3 years of like my span in US, I made sure I visit my parents every year
Hmm.
and meet them. And I come there, like even for 7 days, I'll come there, meet them, and go back.
Hmm.
Now, one thing, if you say my friends don't travel who are in masters, of course they have a loan. I can
Hmm.
understand, and they cannot travel because they have to repay
Correct.
the loan as well. But if I'm getting that privilege of like 100% funding, and if I'm saving over here and
Hmm.
just managing minimal expense to go back to India, meet my parents, and come back, people think like I'm wasting my money in traveling back to India. But to be
Hmm.
honest, when I go back to meet them, it also refreshes my mind and everything. meet them, come back, and again start to work in that sense. So I always
Mm,
make sure, due to COVID, I couldn't travel,
mm,
but I'm always in touch. But that is what I follow. I know I'm like little bit following like off the track and not following the rules which everybody tells, like, oh my god, you have to do research, you have to not call your parents and everything. I
mm,
don't follow that. I feel that if you have some priority in life set,
mm.
you will do that work anyhow.
Correct.
So, and I don't understand how can calling your parents for 10 minutes a day, say for example 20 minutes a day, would affect your PhD. Like, I have never
Exactly.
understood this logic.
Mm,
Or like masters. So parents are also like, they were there for us. They are still there. They're supporting us. But how
mm,
can you not talk to your, like, I'm not saying talk to your parents every day like I do, but have that like support which you feel. And my friends and my relatives are really awesome. And to be honest, if I get a PhD, which I'll get soon, I hope so, my
mm,
entire degree would be, you can say, dedicated for those people who are back in India.
mm.
So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, like I said, I'll put your LinkedIn profile. So if anyone wants to contact Gaurav, the link will be in the description box of this YouTube video. Yeah, and thank you once again, Gaurav, for allocating your time today.
Yeah. No, my pleasure. And I really like, thank you for like inviting me, actually, I would say. Now
Mm.
you might be a busy person, and congratulations for your new job as well.
Yeah,
So
yeah, thank you.
yeah.
Yeah, so this is it for today's podcast. So thank you for listening. Goodbye.